Alright, this first one is just me getting kind of warmed up a little bit. So I've been replaying Deus Ex, and, you know, I'm all ready to, let's see, I got past Stanton Down. I think I'm on the return visit to Hell's Kitchen, the final one. Or did I already go past that? I've already been to the naval shipyards, I remember that. Every time I play Deus Ex, it's always shorter than I remember. And, of course, that's probably just because it's a 26-year-old game that I've personally been playing for 24 years. And I wouldn't say I know it inside out. I probably know more about it than a lot of individuals do, just due to the fact that I'm a level designer by hobby. Um, and I think in more of a technical sense in the first place. And there's a lot of technical factoids about the game where individuals will dig into, the level scripting or like the different flags there are in the game. Like I looked at a thing yesterday where somebody was mentioning something about how to supposedly trigger a hidden conversation with Paul where you decide to stay with Unako. And somebody responded to that guy and said what he said to do wasn't true. And you can know that by just looking through the flags in the game, you know, because the way Unreal Engine works is it's like simple, like sophisticated in a simple way. So a lot of the depth of Deus Ex, it really comes just from simple setting of flags. And what's interesting about it is that like most games really don't do stuff like that. In Unreal Engine you can, but I mean, I'm not even sure to what extent you can really do that in Source Engine. I never paid that much attention to that. But that's why they can have it so that, something you did 3 missions ago will have an effect on the end game, like a conversation or whatever. Or like the perfect example would be if you missed the fake technician at Everett's hideout and then Jock, his helicopter blows up at the start of the Area 51 bit, different shit like that. Um, and of course, there's some stuff in the game like you can read about where stuff breaks, like Everett won't respond to the distress signal at the Duclair mansion, or Bob Page doesn't show up at VersaLife, and that needs to take place for the story to progress. That's probably just due to flags being set incorrectly for whatever reason, and it basically soft locks the game. Um, but to get to my point is that anybody could really dig into that, right? Like, unused voice lines or, dialogue text or, in the case of Deus Ex, passwords and this and that, that are only known about through people just looking through, config files or like whatever. But I'm talking more of a pure technical sense of just understanding how level design and kind of overall game design works in the first place. Is something I have access to, and I look at Deus Ex a lot differently than most do. But whatever maybe I was going somewhere with that, but if I was, I don't remember. But I'll just kind of change to saying that the when you've played the game for over 20 years, it probably predictably makes it play way faster. But even then, despite obvious stuff like that, the game just always, to its credit, feels way bigger than it actually is. You know, um, the smallest levels in the game, are maybe even smaller than stuff in Invisible War. Like the graveyard bit or whatever, and or mausoleum or fucking whatever. And then Maybe not the gas station, but that's like second smallest probably. But, 3D skyboxes and this and that help out. But something about the game just always makes it feel like there's more to do or more to explore. It probably just boils down to the visual design. And I'm not even necessarily talking about easy to think of stuff like, skyboxes, right? Like 3D skyboxes definitely will make stuff feel more elaborate than they really are. Um, but I don't know. I don't really know where I was going with that. But I'm just kind of starting with this one to kind of warm myself up to talking. I'm really just replaying the first game. Probably sometime soon I'll attempt Invisible War again. Um, the last time I played Invisible War, I replayed it start to finish probably a dozen fucking times, and you know I think to an extent I might be more familiar with Invisible War than I am with the first game. Uh, Part of that's probably because it is overall a smaller game. Um, but you know, back in the day, like literally when I was 12 or whatever, when I played on Xbox, I would write my own tutorials to myself. I don't know if I ever tried to put any on the internet, but I figured out different ways to complete quests in Invisible War in such a way where you could basically, I don't know, there's different stuff in the game where, for an example, one player will want you to kill one, and then the other will want you to kill the other, or like something like that. And you like kill one, get the money, and then kill the other. Like tell the other you killed the other guy and get the money for that too, and then kill him as well, or like whatever the fuck. You get what I'm trying to say? So especially on the early game in the lower upper Seattle bit, right after the intro of Tarsus or whatever. Um, probably the more, probably the most complex part of the game, sort of NPC interaction wise, and you can do some pretty interesting stuff with that. And I used to play it over and over to figure out how to get the most money near the start and this and that. And playing on the Xbox originally, that's how I know, and even the PC version, that the modern problems people talk about with the game, they truly are a figment of the modern era, right? Like it's not like the original game on the PS2 port where the load times, just like with the Half-Life 1 port, were abysmal. On Xbox, yeah, they were kind of long, but on PC, I mean, back then they were long. Not long after that, they were all right as hardware got better. But the way the game functioned back then on, XP is nothing like how the game works on modern, computers. But I don't know. I'm kind of just trapped psychologically or whatever at the moment, and I'm kind of trying to just sort of shut out everything the best I can. And this happens to me sometimes. It's one of those things I'll eventually snap out of it probably, but you know, 3 months ago at this point, I had plans for what I was going to do. Part of that was I lost a bunch of weight. I was still lifting, my lifts were still okay. Um, and I was going to finish up my cut and then try to stay to where I was at for a while. And, now instead and a bunch of stuff I was going to do, and now instead I got sick, you know, near close to bedridden for 2 or 3 months, and then haven't lifted in months now. So now I for sure lost muscle because I lost weight on top of not lifting, and for as an emergency when I was the sickest, I was intentionally trying to regain weight to try to kind of offset some issues I was having. Those seem to have mostly subsided, but it still clearly wasn't enough. I mean, even I can tell I lost muscle. But it's just bullshit like that. And like, before I got sick and I was doing the cut, kind of cared more about lifting again. I tried making videos. Of course, YouTube has to ban me, and it just ramps up this technological oppression shit, which is the primary reason I'm kind of mentally where I'm at now. And now I'm doing these fucking videos on shit like that, and it's like, y'all motherfuckers could have just let me make videos about fucking losing weight and like lifting or whatever. But instead, you'd rather fuck with me and just remind me just how dystopic this fucking prison reality is. And maybe once or twice a year, I'll have an experience where, like, it's not necessarily that bad, like in and of its own right, but it's more about the PTSD flashbacks it creates. And I'm sort of instantaneously reminded of my entire life up to that point, and just become, you know, instantaneously, like, acutely hyper aware of just how oppressive, this fucking abyss of a fucking existence is. And, like, even at the start of this, I started mentioning something about level design and being technically minded. And couldn't even remember where the fuck I was going with that. I can't even remember now. But, a lot of the magic of these games is really just due to, flags and an editor, a level editor. And, I mean, it's still awesome. And, well, for me, it is. Knowing how it works just makes it even better, in my opinion. But, like, I did that with um, Half-Life 2 before, Source Engine. So, like, for an example, if you no clip through the level transition to the part where it's the start of Red Letter Day, Alex won't spawn. However, the script entities are referencing a particular NPC underscore Alex with whatever the NPC name is. So if you just create an Alex NPC and whatever the console commands are, I forgot, but use that to set it to the correct NPC name, you can literally spawn the NPC of her. She'll just stand there. But then when you use the console command on her to set the right name to make the script work, you'll see her instantly go into doing the scripts that she normally would at the start of Red Letter Day, right? So there's all sorts of cool stuff like that. And like knowing how level design and this, different, more advanced stuff works really just amplifies my enjoyment. But, as I said, I don't even know where the fuck I was going with that. I made quite a few videos that I didn't publish yet. I made 7 of them. But I was going to do a few more and try to put them up all at once. I don't know if I'll include this one. I'm going to try to limit myself to 3 or maybe 4. Because I don't know exactly how the limit works with YouTube. Is it a true kind of hard 24-hour rollover kind of thing? I mean, I was able to put up 7. I always thought the limit was 5 or 6. Is it 10? I don't know. But I guess I'll be testing that. But hopefully I'm around the 24 limit, or it's like a soft limit. And if I put up 3 or 4, maybe even 5, it would let me and not like bitch about it or something. I don't know. I mean, even this kind of warm up video went a lot longer than I thought it would. So I'm just going to end that one